Hey everybody. Um Glad y'all could join. If you are watching this on the replay, hey, I'm not mad at you that you couldn't join. I'm glad you're here now. Um I recently, like this morning, returned from my trip to Italy. This is a live. Remember, I went live 10 days ago. I can't really remember. It's all sort of a blur. And I had talked about going live again when I got to Florence, and that was the plan. And then things got out of hand. And next thing I know, I looked up and it was time for me to go. And the plan was to go live and kind of share with y'all like the process for leaving Italy. And again, things didn't go the way I planned. So here I am now, incredibly jet lagged, but I wanted to catch y'all up. So glad to see you on a Friday afternoon, a Friday evening. I wasn't sure if today was a good day to go live, but then I figured we're in the middle of an Omicron surge, so everybody would be at home anyway, right? I don't know. Hey, y'all. Um, if you are new to the channel and you are like, who is this woman? What are we talking about? Let me introduce myself. I'm Adelia. I am Picky Girl Travels the World, and I help other women do the same thing by sharing my experiences as a expat of 5.5 years, as a global solo traveler, and all of that good stuff. So if you're new here, I'm glad you're here. If you want to see more videos about travel and life abroad and how to be able to afford to do that, make sure you subscribe. So let's get to it. If I seem a little slow, y'all, it's because I am. Um, I'll catch y'all up. I left Italy the morning of the 6th, which would have been like midnight for y'all in the States. And basically, it took me more than 24 hours to get back to Mexico. I landed in Mexico at 1 o'clock this morning. Then there was drama getting a car to my apartment. So I didn't get home till after 2 a.m. and I'm working on about 3 hours of sleep. So if I'm a little slow, that's why. And that's part of the reason I'm doing this video from my bed, because as soon as it's over, I'm literally going to roll over and go to sleep. um, but one of the things I was reflecting on, like what to share about the rest of my trip to Italy. And the thing that kept playing over and over in my head was, what were the things that I did wrong? I'm out of practice, y'all. In the before times, before COVID, I typically traveled internationally at least once a month. I have not had a real true international trip since January of 2020. I mean, I've flown between Mexico and Houston, but that's a 2-hour flight. That's not a big deal. So what I discovered is I'm out of practice. Things that I know to do, things that like I know better about, I messed up. So I thought I would share some of those with y'all so that as you start to travel again, you don't make the mistakes I made. You learn from my mistakes. Um, yeah. Okay. So we will get started. And if y'all have got questions, I mean, like we're very informal around here, so we don't have to just stick to that. But if y'all got questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. Okay. The first thing that I messed up on that could have really had serious ramifications was I didn't really understand the entry policy and the entry requirements to get into Italy. Um, I have done previous videos where I talked about how hard doing all the planning for this was, and trying to keep track of what the rules are was hard. And as hard as I tried to do that, I still got it wrong. I mentioned this to y'all last time I went live from where was I about to say Bogota, Bologna, um, that I did not fully understand the requirements to enter Italy. I knew that coming from the United States, I would be allowed to enter as a tourist. I knew that coming from Mexico, I would not be allowed to enter as a tourist. I needed to basically live in Italy. Okay, in my head, fine. I'll circumvent the system and I will fly from the US. What I did not realize is that I was not supposed to have been outside the US to a prohibited country for 14 days. I got to the US maybe 5, 6 days before my flight. So, had they looked at the stamp in my passport, they could have denied me entry. Um, I may or may not have had to say that I had been in the US 14 days prior to my trip. So, don't do that, because that last thing I need to do is be getting deported. So yeah, I did not fully understand. I thought I found a loophole and I was wrong. I did not find a loophole. Um, in the future, moving forward, at least for the immediate future, I am not going to travel someplace I can't go directly as a tourist from Mexico. It's just too much work. It's too much hassle, too much opportunity for something to go wrong by trying to travel from another country. So that's one way I'm going to mitigate that in the future. Um, I'm just looking at the comments to see if I missed any questions. Okay, so that was the first thing I did wrong. And so that was playing in the back of my head like, "Oh, please don't let these people look at the dates of the stamps in my passport, because that's going to be a problem." Um I also mentioned to y'all last time I talked to you the drama I had getting a COVID test when I was in the US, because, of course, I needed a test to enter Italy, as well as possibly whatever countries I was transiting through. I completely underestimated how difficult, or what those logistics look like. And I know better than that. I assumed it would be as easy as it is for me here in Mexico, or easier, because I mean, after all, it's the United States, right? Um, so I and that was an opportunity where this whole thing could have gone to hell in a handbasket. Um, I underestimated the cost of getting a test in the United States. I didn't do any real research other than ask a couple of people, like, "Hey, like, where can I get a COVID test?" And I didn't like I know again, I know better. And I really didn't understand that the turnaround times, that's probably the inability to get an appointment in the US for a COVID test. Now, mind you, this was December 20th, 21st. So this was right at the beginning as things were starting to get crazy with Omicron. I'm not sure what it was like before that, but I dropped the ball on that. So I completely underestimated that. The turnaround time was probably a big one, because I would have gone for the PCR test. I could have gotten either one, but here in Mexico, you can get a PCR test in 24 hours or less, and it's generally less. And so I was expecting the same experience in the US, and I did not get that. So yeah, that was a problem. Um, Redeem says, "I thought the test was free in the US. Is it not?" It is free if it's because you think you have been exposed. If you are traveling and you need a test for travel in the US, those are not free. And everybody is trying to make all the money. I mentioned to y'all that pretty much my best option was a place at the airport that charged $250 for a rapid test, not even a PCR test. Um, you could try and circumvent that by not telling them that you need, like, from what I understand, Walgreens, CVS, you go to a minute clinic, or you go to a, what do you call them? I want to call them fast hospitals. That's not what they're called. um, Urgent care. You go to a place like that, and if you are getting the test because you think you've had an exposure, they then get reimbursement from the federal government. But if you go because you are traveling, they can't get reimbursement for the federal government. Therefore, they are allowed to charge you whatever they want. Um, I figured I'd have to pay for a test in the US. I just didn't figure it was going to cost me $250. Now, luckily, I was able to not have to do that, but it was a near thing. It was a very close thing. And really, I was about to pay the money because it was coming down to I literally could not get a test in the right time period. So I did not have like good intel, and that's, again, that's a mistake on my part. I should have known better. I do know better. Um I'm looking at what y'all are saying about the COVID testing. Return test from Costa Rica, $40. Like, my friend was here visiting for Thanksgiving, and we had somebody come to my apartment to give her a antigen test. And I think it was like $35, because if you walk in and do an antigen test, that's like 15 bucks. So um, like I said, I didn't understand the real logistics of what's the situation on the ground. And I don't know if that's because the people like I talked to haven't had to test regularly. I don't know. But everybody kind of seemed to, or the information I got, everybody made it seem like it wasn't going to be a big deal. And then it was a very big deal. Um, yeah, a lot of people, even if it's for travel, your insurance company will cover it. I don't have US insurance. So that's the other thing too. That added a little bit more excitement to my whole trip that I wasn't necessarily ready for. Y'all could probably hear Mia walking across the room. Um, Yeah, and trying, like I said, trying to book an appointment. That was the appointment I did end up getting, because I ended up taking two tests. One was at one of those shipping container places that, like they drop off on the side of the road. Uh, I got one of those, but it was the wrong test. I told you. Well, they gave me the wrong results in time for my flight. I ended up getting in an urgent care place, just sheer luck. It was really touch and go for a minute. So, yeah, I did not have good intel, and I should have had better intel. Um, this is the thing. There are lots of places, or at least where I was in Houston, everybody kept saying, well, there are places on the side of the road that do testing. Okay. The problem is when you have a very specific turnaround to get your test results. And because this was right when countries started to change their entry requirements because of Omicron. So, where somebody might have taken a test that was 48 hours or 72 hours old, at this point, everybody's like, no, the test needs to be less than 24 hours. And then it depended on the country where you were going. Italy, it needed to be less than 24 hours before I arrived in Italy. That's very different than less than 24 hours before departure. So, yeah. See, and Angela mentions that testing was easy last summer. And that's what I think. I think part of it was my fault because I didn't do my homework like I was supposed to. I think the other part was this was at the beginning of really starting to see the Omicron numbers go up. And those two things coming together were a disaster for me. Um, Definitely, I think Omicron complicated things. And I kept thinking back to this time last year when we had no vaccines, like I I remember sitting in Cabo and we were kicking around ideas for the Christmas New Year's trip for this year. And we were like, in theory, this should be so much easier next year because hopefully we'll have a vaccine or this will be gone. The fact that 12 months later, we were virtually in the same situation, that, that that's a little hard to swallow, I think. But yeah, I think Omicron added to this. And so over the weeks that I was in Italy, every now and then I would get a news report about how the Omicron situation was worsening across Europe, and more people were countries were breaking records with the number of positive tests. And I'm like, this is just getting worse. Um, so yeah. Uh, oh, I hadn't even thought about this, that some of the roadside testing places could be doing identity theft. I will I told y'all I'm slow. I'm sleep deprived, but I will give you, somebody came through the roadside place that I got my COVID test. They actually ran both a PCR and an antigen. The problem was they gave me antigen results when I really needed PCR results because of when I took the test. Um, I think it's, what is it? Is they have places uh all over the United States. And now I can't think of what it's like, COVID testing America.org. I don't know, but I'll find that and I will put it in the description of this video. So, um, that if they, because you can search online to see where they have locations near you. You just can't make an appointment. It is, you show up, that sort of thing. So when I find that, I will put that in the description. Okay. Um, oh, this is okay. So here's another thing where I messed up. And again, this was my lack of on the ground intel. Um, there's so much, unless you're going to like a really isolated country or a country that just really doesn't have things on the ball, there's a lot of stuff you can wing. You don't have to plan out every aspect of your trip. So a lot of when I travel is kind of like fly by the seat of my pants sort of thing. I did not do like, I didn't go deep into what are the actual COVID restrictions in Italy, because I mean, I'm already masking. I'm already, like I carry my wipes, I carry my hand sanitizer, minimum distance. I figured we're doing all of that. So I didn't really dig deep into it because I figured that's pretty universal. um, that could have been a huge disaster because in Italy, I don't know for how long, cloth masks are not allowed on, they're really not allowed anywhere, but not allowed on transportation, public transportation, mass transit at all. Um, and I have been using exclusively cloth mask because, I sew, so I made them. And two, it was just easier than, buying disposable ones. So that's what I brought with me, thinking nothing of it. And I noticed looking around that people weren't even using the surgical mask. They had the European equivalent of N95s. That's almost exclusively what I saw. I saw the occasional person with a medical mask. But this, I think they had this requirement even before Omicron. Okay, I know they're telling us now, don't rely on cloth masks because of how transmissible Omicron is. Well, I didn't know this. So here I am with all of my fabric masks. I'm riding the train from Venice to Bologna. There's a, what do you call it? An announcement playing in Italian, then in English, telling you about the dispensers for hand sanitizer and that only the, what is it, FFB2 mask are allowed. Um, no one said anything to me personally, but as we got later in the trip and we took more trains, we saw people being removed from the train who did not have on the proper mask. When we tried to board a train, when we went to San Marino, small micro state completely surrounded by Italy, we took the train to a city to take the bus to San Marino. And I had switched to N95 mask. But my friend that day just happened to wear like a surgical mask and they would not let her enter the train station. Luckily, we were staying across the street from the train station. So it was as simple as uh, running across the street and her grabbing the right mask. But I reflected on that during the trip and was like, something as simple and as little as that, like I had no idea that some countries were being that specific about their requirements. I was expecting the requirements to be you must wear a mask, which I do anyway. So, even when I left Venice to come back to Mexico, I want to say yesterday. Was it yesterday? I don't remember. But on the 6th, as we were getting ready to board the flight, there was a lady in line who had on a surgical mask and not an FFB2. And the dude working the counter was like losing his shit about it. So that pointed out to me, like, for the next trip I take, I have got to do a better job of what are the country specific rules on the ground about their COVID precautions. It can't be something very casually. I ask somebody, I have to do more work on that part. So that it surprised me because it didn't really occur to me that that might be a thing. And sort of in that same vein is the green pass that Italy has. Um, yeah, Italy, I think part of the issue with Italy is, remember, a year ago, things started to, not a year ago, 2 years ago, almost exactly, during Venetian Carnival, things started to just spin out of control. And Italy has the oldest population in Europe, maybe second oldest in the world next to Japan. So think about the mortality, incidence of mortality with COVID at the very beginning of the pandemic with older people. So Italy was hit really, really bad, which is why, like, they're not playing now. And so they were one of the, if not one of the first countries with the green pass. They have one that's more restrictive, or like I get the impression in some other European countries, it's less drama about this. Green pass is similar to what I had when I lived in China. We had an app on our phone, and anytime we entered a place, we had to scan it, and it tracked us. And if you were exposed to somebody, it would impact the color. Like if you were yellow, that they may not let you in because that meant you have an exposure. If you were red, that sort of thing. So Italy's green pass is sort of like that. I thought the green pass was just about being vaccinated, which is primarily, I think, how it was being used. Well, what I didn't fully understand, and I was, how do you get a green pass? I knew you needed one. I knew you needed to be vaccinated, but I did not have the full picture on, okay, how do I get a green pass? How do I prove this? I thought I was doing something. I got both of my first vaccinations and my booster all at Walmart. Walmart has an electronic um, vaccine card with a QR code on it. And I thought, okay, I'll print this and I'll have this and they can scan the QR code. That's like as far as my thinking got. And then as I was sitting in the airport transiting through Switzerland, because remember I told y'all it was in doubt whether I was actually going to get into Italy. So maybe that's why I didn't dig deeper into that, because I was like, I may not even get into the country. But when it became clear that they were going to let me in, I started, I had a little downtime, started searching on my phone, figuring out, okay. And I couldn't find anything on how foreigners could get a green pass. If you take a COVID test in Italy, your information automatically gets fed into that and you can get it. But if you're coming in as a foreigner with foreign proof of vaccination, it's a whole thing. Eventually talked to the lady at our first hotel. This is why we opted to stay in hotels, so that we could have people to ask questions to. And she was like, no, as a foreigner, you just need to show your vaccine card. And so that's what we did. And that worked fairly well. I have Moderna. My friend had Johnson and Johnson. And there were a few instances where people did not know that Johnson and Johnson was just one dose. And all except one place, when we said that, they were like, oh yeah, that's right. This one place was like, no, you are not fully vaccinated. You cannot come inside. Y'all can sit outside, but you can't come inside. So if I had done better research, I could have arranged to take a COVID test as soon as we arrived in Italy. And had that been sufficient for the green pass. I mean, I guess this isn't a huge mistake because we did have our vaccine cards. We would just show the passport. We had a whole range of how closely people checked that. Some people wanted to verify that the name matched the birth date. Other people were like, oh, Americans, y'all just go through, because they were like, I can't scan it, because they wanted to be able to scan a QR code. And our US vaccine cards don't have that. So that wasn't a huge mistake, but I could have done better when it came to that. I'm looking. There was a question. I know there was a question. Okay. And it said question in it. Okay. I think, okay. Alicia, did you only travel within Italy? Yes, which is not my typical style. Well, that's why I went to San Marino. Typically, if I'm going to travel, I like to squeeze in as many countries as possible. But I knew that trying to coordinate entry requirements was going to be a pain in the butt. And this was already hard enough. So I was like, we're going to keep things simple. We're only going to go to Italy. Going to San Marino was my little workaround, because I knew, since it was such a small country, completely surrounded by Italy, it would not be any different to go there than it was to go somewhere else. But yeah, that is why we opted only to go to one country, because it's just it's just too much. It's just too much. um okay, good question. Non-cloth mask, yes, you can buy N95, KN95. That's what they sell here in Mexico, and I believe that's what they sell in the United States. You can buy those at like, we had access to buy them there. Like, I would have to find a pharmacy to buy a mask there. There were some mask vending machines, but that wasn't like a universal thing everywhere. But yeah, you can get those on Amazon. Now, can you get them right now? Maybe not, because I heard that people were buying up stuff because of Omicron. But any K95 or KN95 masks, which you should be able to buy just about everywhere now, or previously shouldn't have been an issue. Um, I don't know the answer to this, Alicia. Isn't there an electronic vaccine passport we can use? I don't think so. Now, I had my QR code from Walmart, and I was curious. Like after people started accepting my paper card, I was trying to get somebody to scan it to see if, like, does this even have any information on it? Whatever app they're using for Green Pass did not work with my QR code from Walmart. So I'm not exactly sure who's supposed to be able to scan that QR code because they could not. I did not know this. Like I said, I've been last 2 years, it's just been me and my cloth mask. So I did not know this. The mask that I ended up having, I guess, is a KN95 one. Um, like I said, I think the ones they use in Italy are called FFB2. So maybe try searching that if you're looking. Okay. So maybe it's a state thing, uh, an electronic vaccine card. Uh, my state of record is Texas, and y'all know Texas ain't doing nothing like that. Good question, Kathy. Were you prepared for the weather variations? Short answer, no. And here's the thing. I know better. I have I have I have been in Europe for like 5 or 6 Christmases and New Year's. So I knew it was going to be cold. And I had my down jacket, I had a hat, I had gloves. Now, did I ever wear the hat or the gloves? I wore the gloves once. I didn't wear the hat ever. I don't know what's wrong with me, but I didn't. Um, it rained. That one I wasn't really prepared for. In Bologna, the rain was not that big of an issue because all through the city, there are like these porticos, these covered walkways. So the rain was not a big deal there. Um, but in Florence, there were no porticos. So we ended up buying an umbrella from a guy on the street. Um, and then when we went to San Marino, did have enough wherewithal to double check what the weather was, because as a former geography teacher, I know that as you increase elevation, temperature decreases. Specifically, every was it 1,000 feet you go up in elevation, temperature drops 3.5 degrees. San Marino was built on the top of a mountain. What I had not prepared for was the wind in San Marino. It was about freezing, low 40s, high 30s. But I was not prepared for the wind. With the wind added to it, that was way more than I was ready for. And that impacted like how much we felt like doing while we were there because it was cold and it was windy. Um, what was the general vibe toward tourists right now? My tour guides, as we talked to them, specifically were saying, like in Florence, I didn't realize this. Florence is a very popular tourist destination for American tourists. And they were very, like, she was very enthusiastic that we were there. She was saying that, basically everything had dried up. They are getting a few more European tourists, a few more Italian tourists, but they're still not at a point where they're replacing or they're at the numbers they were at before. So what was it, this past summer, when Italy finally opened up for tourism, they were very excited because the tourists were bringing money that they desperately needed. So on the whole, um, I felt that the general vibe was positive. Um, yeah, I can't think of anybody who made us feel like, oh, they didn't really want us to be there. Um, I felt bad for not having more Italian, but nobody gave us any problems for that. When we were in areas that were less frequented by foreigners, they would try and speak in Italian, or they would speak in Italian. And when I didn't understand, I'd be like, but do you speak Spanish? And if they did, we worked it out that way. Um, so no, I think the general vibe was pretty good. Um, see, okay. I d- I think my thing from Walmart, I got it online, but it's not like, I don't know. I don't know. But like I said, I talked to somebody who I knew had been bopping around Europe for the past few months. They'd been in Portugal, uh, and they were like, "No, I'm just using my white CDC card." And like I said, for the most part, we didn't have any issues doing that. Um, I don't know. S- Salkis? I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. What's the general vibe there for American sisters? There where? Italy? Um, like I told y'all, I didn't see a lot of loose men, free men walking around. Although we did one black man. I am not sure what country he was from. He was not American. And I think he was living in Italy, walked up and he said, what did he say to us? Black beauty, African beauty, something like that. He smiled and kept going. Okay, well, we'll chalk that up as a positive. And some dude who was not black, but also not Italian, but he lived there, so an immigrant, but I'm not sure where he was from. He said something to me which sounded positive, followed up by chocolate, and he said it in a nice way. So I don't know, y'all. I'm the worst person to ask about men. I think I like repel them. So I don't know. I don't know. I've heard all the stories about how Italian men dig black women. Maybe it's because we were all wearing masks, maybe because it was cold and rainy, but I don't know. Could also have been because I was typically in the bed by 8 or 9 o'clock and not trying to be out around a bunch of people so I could catch COVID. So I don't know. I don't know. I'll have to do better on the man front for y'all, but that's I'm not good at that. Um Eartha says, thanks, canceled my trip, could get a test easily around 12:29. All hell broke loose in New Jersey. Yeah, and so I'm, the only channels, of course, that are in English are like CNN, BBC. And so these are the things I would catch on TV. And I'm just like, what is it going to look like when we leave? We were hoping that we would be there long enough that things would kind of be on the decline when we left. I don't think that was the case. Um, Hey, this ain't a problem with me. We'll have to talk about that some other time. Okay. Well, okay. Did I find any hot chocolate? Yeah, I found all the hot chocolate. um, I do enjoy Mexican hot chocolate, but Europeans know what's up with hot chocolate. And the Italians came through for me. I had hot chocolate everywhere I could. One of the words I learned was whipped cream, panna, in Italian. So, yes, I had lots of hot chocolate, probably way more than I should have. So, no, that was good. That was good. So, like I was telling y'all, I think I messed up not doing as much research as I should have on the Green Pass and that sort of thing. And speaking of that, somebody asked, they didn't ask this question tonight, but they had asked it on the last video I did about are they going to expect a booster? um, there are there were conversations about what is the definition of being fully vaccinated going to be. I know that Italy, for their own people, are going to require vaccination for everybody over 50, simply because they're like, no, we're not doing this. So will you need to have a booster? I would not be shocked if things go that direction. But as of right now, I didn't see or hear anything firm about that. Um, Now, so much of my energy went on figuring out how to get into the country. What are the travel restrictions? What do I need to do? What are the locator forms I need to fill out? What kind of test do I need to have? I was very focused on how to get into the country. I gave very little thought on how to get out. And that was a mistake. Um, I just kind of crossed my fingers and hoped, because it was Europe, that testing would not be the fiasco it was in the United States. Um, I didn't really think about, and again, I know better. I was in Europe January 2020 when uh, things got really crazy in China and my flight got canceled. So I knew what this could turn into, but I didn't invest any energy in that. I think because I was so worn out getting into the country. Um, so I did a little, like, I didn't wait to the end of the 3 weeks or whatever to figure out how am I going to get tested. I knew I was leaving out of Venice. And so I did a little research about, was there testing at the Venice airport, but that was going to be like my last case scenario, worst case scenario. I really figured I should get tested in Florence. And I got lucky. I saw people getting tested at pharmacies. And what's alarming is the number of people I would see in line getting tested at the beginning of my trip. As the trip went on, those lines got longer and longer. And I just kept thinking, "Ugh, am I going to have to stand in one of these lines?" Um, I got to Googling and found there is a foreign doctor who speaks English who does COVID testing, among other things, in Italy. Oh, but he was on vacation, so I couldn't get him, but ended up being able to book appointments online at a place, got my antigen tests the afternoon before we left, 35 euros. Um, and that's, well, I mentioned that this one doctor was on vacation. That's something else I underestimated. When Europeans go on vacation, they go on vacation. So I'm thinking stuff might be closed Christmas Eve, might be closed Christmas Day, New Year's Day, maybe January 6th for Three Kings Day. What I did not realize is some people went on vacation or closed Christmas Eve and they're like, we'll be open in March, or we'll be open January 22nd. Um, I I didn't think about that. And that could have came back to bite me in the butt. Luckily it didn't. So um I should have put a little bit more effort into planning the requirements to get out. Luckily, I was transiting through Germany. Germany only cared, I think, that I was vaccinated because I was transiting. I didn't need any kind of test for Germany. But that, like, I was at the same time, I'm in Facebook groups and I'm seeing people talk about, like, to leave, I didn't know this, to leave Dubai or it sometimes it depends on your airline, like Emirates. Apparently, if you're flying Emirates to the US, Emirates requires you to have a PCR test, even though the United States does not. But the PCR test has to be done in less than 24 hours. We know how hard that is. UAE requires you to have a PCR test to leave, even though you don't need it in the country you're getting into. So I should have given more thought to how to get out of a country than I did. I did not give that enough thought. And I also really gave virtually no thought to the fact that when places could be closed, it wouldn't just be for the day of the holiday, that they might be taking off the season, they might be taking off the month. Um, that could have played out worse for me than it had. And I'll say probably this is the biggest mistake that I made. Um, the US State Department, I believe, just sent out a message telling Americans who are traveling overseas, you need to have a contingency plan. You need to expect to be stuck somewhere and know what you're going to do. I had zero contingency plan, and shame on me. I know better than that. Because here's the thing, if I had tested positive, because was running through my head, I'm doing everything I can. Like, we're going to things only outside. We're trying to eat outside or well ventilated places. We're not doing large group tours. Everything we did, it was just me and my friend. I'm doing all of that, but at the same time, I know Omicron is more contagious. So if when I took my test, had it come back positive, what was my plan to quarantine? Where was I going to quarantine? I don't know anybody who lives in Italy. Um, I that should honestly, your quarantine plan needs to be part of the trip planning. That's not something that should be left to figure out once you're on the ground. That should really be part of the pre-trip planning. And I think that is probably the biggest mistake that I made. I don't know that I really have a defense for that because I know better. Because again, I got stuck in Prague in 2020. I got stuck in China in 2020. I should know better. But again, I was so focused on, can I get into the country? I didn't think about, how do I get out? And if I can't leave, what am I going to do? How am I going to manage that? So yeah, I'm a little disappointed in myself for that one. Lisa, are you going to visit other parts of Europe? Eventually, I will do more of Eastern Europe. I'm, for the most part, Western Europe, I'm done. I've seen all I want to see, unless I can go to like Andorra or Luxembourg, because those are two very small countries I've not been to yet. Scandinavia is still on the list, but I actually, honestly, Scandinavia is probably further on the list than Eastern Europe. But Scandinavia is going to have to be when it's warm, because just being in the 40s every day, that was too much for me. So it would have to be summer in Scandinavia. So yeah, I'll go back to Europe, but just not Western Europe, because I've done what I need to do there. Your favorite wine you had in Italy? Well, we got stupid with Prosecco from the jump, which was part of the plan. One day, I think we were like 7 glasses in before we even ate. Um, there's a regional wine in Bologna called Pigmento Frizzante. I liked that. I can tell you, I do not like Chianti, which is the wine that's big in Florence. I tried it, not a fan. Um, I can't tell you specific names because we didn't pay attention to names. We just kind of were like, maybe we'll try this one. Maybe we'll try that one. Yeah. So no, I do not like dry wine. I prefer sweet wine. So I hung out very much, lots of prosecco, and I from the wine tour we took, I learned that I want DC DCDG DOCG, because there's two designations that prosecco can have, and one of them is from an area that is more hilly, mountainous. That I like the taste of that better. um I should really tell y'all the name of the winery we went to that I like their stuff, and I'll try to remember to add that. um let's see. It's okay if you off topic, Kimberly. We're flexible over here. This is the mural I got painted in my bedroom, because I wanted to do something in my bedroom, because I know we're still in a pandemic, and if I got to be stuck in the house, which it looks like I might be for a little while, I wanted to jazz things up. So thank you. I like it too. Um, let's see. Uh, I'm just looking through y'all's questions. Yeah. Like I said, I messed up by not, because especially given my experience and knowing what it is like to be stuck in a country, I dropped the ball on that. Um, my test, the oh, let me tell y'all about the test we took in Florence. It was a great clinic, although because of the drama I had going to Italy, I was very like, what if this clinic turns out not to be right? What if they can't get us our results? Like all of that's playing in my head. It was a very good clinic. They got us in, they got us swabbed, they got us out. I think we were in there less than 10 minutes. I was able to make the appointments online. Um, they only charge 35 euros. If you're not Italian, because we needed it for travel. Um, but she was like, here's the code you'll need to enter when you get your email with your results. I'm expecting an email with a PDF from the clinic. Instead, I'm on the train leaving Florence, coming back to Venice, because that's where I'm flying out of. I get an email from the government. You talking about giving me heart palpitations, because I'm like, oh shit, does this mean they've reported me because my test is positive? And this is when I discovered that, oh, by taking that test, I could now get Green Pass. The problem is to retrieve the results, because there were no results in this email. It was just, your results are in, and these are the places you can access them. And they list all these government apps and all that. Well, the identifying criteria they want you to use are numbers foreigners don't have. Like, I don't have an Italian social security number. And I was like, well, maybe if I use my passport number, blah, 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 and I can't get the results. And I'm thinking, oh shit, like this is, I might as well not have taken the test. I can't get my results, blah, blah, blah. Okay, all that panic was for nothing. About an hour later, I got the email from the clinic with the PDF attached. So had a little bit of a heart palpitation there. So my tests, my antigen test that I took in Florence was accepted. We didn't have any problems with that. Um, yeah. Uh, let's see. I'm catching up here. Yes, my girl, she's over there sleeping her bed, but she was here with the dog sitter. I came in at 2 o'clock in the morning. She got up and she saw me, and I think she was like, because part of the trip, somebody was watching her away from the apartment. And then the dog sitter picked her up and brought her back to my apartment. So I think in her head, she was like, I was home, but you weren't here. And then when she saw me, she was like, oh, okay, so you are coming back. So yeah, no, we're good. We're back to doing our thing. Uh, so no, we're all good there. Um, so yeah, I dropped the ball by not having a quarantine plan, and um, somebody asked about me going to Europe. Initially, I had planned to be in Georgia for my birthday at the end of the month. I have canceled that. I will not be going to Georgia because that was supposed to be my next European destination. Um, I there are multiple reasons. Part of it is COVID of why I went ahead and canceled that. So my next trip is supposed to be to Panama. We will see if Omarion's gonna act right so that I can still go to Panama. But I can tell you, for all of my upcoming trips, on my little planning template that I use, quarantine plan is now going to be on there because that could have really gone south. Um, there were some mistakes I made with packing. As y'all know, I am team carry on, I am team one bag. I got quite a bit into my little bag. I wanted to have options. Um, I think I should have been more realistic about the options I needed for clothing. Like before I even left Mexico, it was already becoming clear that cities were canceling their big celebrations. So things that I thought we might do, I could have eliminated a few things that didn't need I did not use. Um, because the reality was, with the way the pandemic was going, we weren't going to go to those type of events. So I could have my packing could have been tightened up a little bit better. um and the I know better than this. This is like one of my number one travel rules is always have snacks, purse snacks, always, always, always. I even posted on IG about how I was using my jacket pockets to carry some of my snacks. Well, of course, those snacks got eaten and I should have replenished them and I didn't. And that did bite me in the ass on the last night. So we got tested in Florence, took the train back to Venice, needed to get from the train station in Mestre to the hotel we were staying at by the airport. I knew this hotel did not have a restaurant. I also knew there weren't many restaurants around the hotel. I should have stopped for snacks. I didn't. And so I'm sitting at a hotel starving because I had two hot chocolates, but I didn't really eat anything that day. So all I'm running on are two hot chocolates with whipped cream. Nobody's delivering anything. Everything's closed. It's the day before a holiday. I did not like I knew January 6th was the holiday, but I didn't understand that there were quite a few businesses that were closing on January 5th. So um, it was looking like we were going to have air pudding for dinner on January 5th. This was the night before we left. And the people at the hotel were not helpful. Like, I can't believe we were the only people ever to be like, hey, where do we get something to eat? It was cold, it was rainy. So the thought of like, well, we'll just walk and see what we find. That did not happen. Um, my friend, I will give her credit. She kept looking, she kept searching. She found a poke bowl place. We noticed a lot of poke places. Most of them were empty. I don't know who got the idea that poke bowls would be popular in Italy, but they weren't very popular. But there was a poke place that was open that we ordered from. And if you know me and you know why I am called the picky girl who travels the world, you know I'm not eating no poke bowl. But it was that or starve because I had no snacks. So Um, I get this poke bowl. And mind you, everything's in Italian. We don't have time to translate the words because we're afraid, like, are they going to close and then we can't eat at all? So looking at the words in Italian, I'm trying to think, because we ordered on Uber Eats. There was literally one place available. It was this poke place. And on Uber Eats, when you're given choices for some things, you have to pick. I couldn't just say, give me rice and chicken. It was like, no, you pick your protein, you pick your base. Now pick 4 vegetables. What? So I tried to pick things that I knew what they were and would be easy to pick out. So, like broccoli, because I'm not eating it, but broccoli is easy to remove. Um, edamame. And then I think these other things were potatoes, but they were nasty. So, and the only utensils they gave us were chopsticks. So I'm there with the chopsticks, picking out pieces of edamame and broccoli and potatoes so that I can. Oh, and there was this other thing. It might have been zucchini or celery. I don't know what it was. I didn't recognize the Italian name. I'm trying to get down to just the rice and chicken. So it takes me like 20 minutes of picking the stuff out. And then even the rice and chicken were questionable. So it was so ironic that this trip that had been all about food and wine ended with me starving to death and having to pick through this random ass poke bowl. It was sad. And all because I wasn't on my snack game like I should have been. Like, I know better than that. So I may have to, like, in my final day preparation, things have to like start making sure I double check on the snacks, because yeah, I dropped the ball on that. I dropped the ball. So those are the big mistakes I made. I'm going back through the comments to see if there were any other questions. Am I happy to be back home in Mexico? So happy. So happy, y'all. Okay, I had 4 flights because I waited so long to buy my expensive ass ticket. Instead of getting a flight that went Houston, Frankfurt, Venice, I had to fly through Miami, Switzerland, Houston, Miami, Switzerland, Venice. And then coming back, I went from Venice to Munich to Newark to Houston, then was coming to Mexico City. And I was just, I had seen the stuff about how on Christmas Eve, there were thousands of flights canceled. The previous weekend, there had been thousands of flights canceled. My friend, one of her flights got canceled. She was rescheduled. So I was like, ugh, I just want to get home. I just knew it was going to be the flight in Newark. I just knew that was going to be the one. I had heard about East Coast weather. No, all of that goes without a hitch. I land in Houston, turn on my phone, check the email. Aero Mexico is like, oh, we've changed your itinerary. There's a delay in your flight. My flight was delayed multiple times. I didn't know, but there was some severe weather drama here in Mexico, because there were like all of these flights coming from Mexico City were delayed. So I should have landed in Mexico City at like 10 p.m. yesterday. I got in after 1 this morning. And I was like, am I going to be sleeping at this airport? So I was so thankful to get on that plane and know that I was going to be coming home last night. Let's see. Yeah, poke bowls, vegetables, me. Bad idea. All around Bologna. Now, mind you, Bologna, that part of Italy is known as the fat, because it's like known for its food. I will say the best food we had was in Bologna. Bologna kicked Florence's butt. I didn't have high expectations for Venice. Venice was more about wine, but as we walked around, we kept seeing these poke places. Nobody was in them. So I'm not sure who thought, oh, that's what we need in Italy is poke. But the Italians were like, no, honey, we're not eating this. Yes, I have got to get back on my snack game. Like, because y'all know, being a picky eater like I am, I actually, it was Italy. My very first trip that ever required a passport, because I had been to Mexico, but this was back when you could use your birth certificate. The first trip I ever took where I needed a passport was to Italy. And I almost starved on that trip because it was a tour. We were eating out of gas stations, and you cannot be picky about like what you want on your sandwich and that sort of thing. So ever since that's been 20 years of traveling. I have always had my snack game on, and I dropped the ball. I am very thankful to be back in warmer weather in Mexico. High is in the 70s, lows in the 40s, which is typical winter weather here. And it is not rainy season here in Mexico, although it did rain yesterday, which was weird because that doesn't actually happen. Was there an extra expense because of COVID tests, extra travel costs? Um, Other than having to pay for COVID tests, there were no fee. Okay. There were no extra COVID fees, but if you have never been to Italy, you need to be aware of the cover charge. This is a very common thing. If you ever watch videos or you see pictures and you see people eating standing up, you get to do that for free. But the minute you go into a place and you sit down, they're going to charge you a €3, a €2 50 cent cover charge. That's just normal. And it's per person. So there's that. But I knew, I expected that. I knew that was a thing. But nobody was charging like a COVID recovery fee or anything like that. Um, how do I get fiber? I don't know. Legumes, whole wheat pasta, oatmeal. I don't know. I don't know. I don't overthink it. Um, you asking me these questions about men? I didn't told y'all. I am the worst person to ask. I think you know how some people give off vibes, like you can tell they don't want to fool with you. I think the men may pick up that I'm not a big fan of theirs. I mean, like they have uses, but on the whole, I ain't got time for no man. And maybe I'm not even aware that I'm giving off that vibe and they're picking up on it. I don't know. I don't know. Ah. Um, so those were the things that I messed up um, on my trip. Here's a question that just popped up. Do you have to get an FMM with your resident card when you exit Mexico? Okay, this is unrelated to our Italy topic, but I will answer this because there may be people who don't realize this. When you are a resident of Mexico, like I am, you do the FMM card, but you do it in reverse. When you come to Mexico as a tourist and you're on the plane, they give you the FMM card. They take part of it. You keep the bottom half until you leave and you turn that in. For me, it's the opposite. I have to check out with immigration at the airport every time I leave Mexico. Um, and I fill out the form, and I can never remember which part they take, but they take one when I leave, and then I have to keep the other piece until I come back and I have to give that in. So I think when I left, they took the wrong piece. I don't know. But I had my card and I had actually filled out the wrong airline on it. But I guess it was 1 o'clock in the morning and the lady was like, where did you come from? And I was like, I came from Houston. And she's like, you didn't come on a United flight. I was like, you're right. And she changed it and she was very nice. But yes, I do have to do FMM, but I do it in reverse because I am a resident. Uh, don't. This is part of the reason why I don't really like cook for other people is because I know how to feed me. I don't know how to feed other people. So yeah, I blah, blah, blah. Okay. Here's another thing to know about Italy. You want water, tap water, they don't drink tap water. If you ask for water, if they offer water, it is going to be bottled. If you ask for tap water, I don't think anybody's going to bring that to you. So yeah, you will be charged for water probably about 2 3 euros a bottle. That is standard. I don't know why they don't drink the tap water because it is safe to drink, but that's just not a thing. So yeah. Aside from snacks, what would I do differently when I revisit? Definitely a different season. Every time I am in Europe in the winter, I keep saying, I don't like being here when it's cold and dreary. And then I come back. So, no, if I go back to Italy, I am pretty much done with Northern Italy. I keep hearing that Sicily, I need to check out the food in Sicily. Um, so, if I were to ever go back to Italy, I would go someplace in the South. Y'all, because I've done the like going to the Colosseum, the St. Uh, St. Peter's. I've done that. So if I go back, it's gonna be about the food or something cool. And so I'm done with Northern Italy. I might revisit Rome. I might go to Napoli to get some good pizza because I had okay pizza. I didn't have great pizza. But yeah, I'd focus more on the South if I went back to Italy. And I would definitely go when it was warmer. Um, I should not be going there in the winter. Mediterranean winters are cold and rainy. I know this. I was a geography teacher, but still, I always act brand new every time I'm there. Uh, let's see. Okay, so yeah, Sicilian food. That's if I go back. I don't know if I will, which is why I was so bound and determined to get to San Marino. Oh, this was another mistake I made. I didn't realize it was a mistake. I have driven a car in Belgium, the Netherlands, Oman, New Zealand, a bunch of countries. I do not have an international driver's license. I've never needed one. We were trying to figure out what was the best way to get to San Marino. And we could go by train, but then we were like, you know what? Why don't we just rent a car? Turns out you do need an international driver's license in Italy. I don't have one, therefore, we could not rent a car. So I should have, I don't know. I guess I never considered as I was making plans doing driving. So I didn't really think that through, but I figured this would likely be the last time I go to Italy, like on purpose. So I wanted to go to San Marino because I didn't get to go when I was there before. Um, am I interested in learning Italian? Um, I don't know. I don't know. I in my head, if I'm going to go through, because at 46, almost 47, learning another language is not super easy. So if I'm going to go through the work, it needs to be a language I can get the most bang for my buck. That means not a language spoken in one country. So Italian, it's got limited usage. Um, as as does Portuguese. Yeah, you've got Brazil and Portugal, but their Portuguese isn't the exact same. You got a few countries in Africa, but the vast majority of Portuguese speakers, that's where they are. So if I'm going to do it again, it needs to be a language I can get more bang for my buck. That should probably be French, especially since I have studied it previously. I don't know if my brain has the capacity for it. So I don't know. I don't know. I'm still working on mastering Spanish. I haven't really spoken Spanish since early December. So, like getting back into that's a whole thing. So I don't know. I don't know. What continent am I off to next? Mexico is going to be my base. Uh, and that's all I know at this point, is that if I am not here in Mexico City, Mexico will be my base for some other place. I don't know what that is. I think I may have to just kind of wait till the dust settles and see what residency options look like in other places. Um, yeah. Regine said, I want to say that you are so brave to travel during a pandemic. I have always said this, that there is a thin line between bravery and stupidity. And sometimes it is unclear which side of the line I am on. So thank you. One of the things we talked about after I went through so much even to get there was like, should we have canceled this trip? We probably should have, but it turned out okay. But you know what? I'm good not to go anywhere too far for quite a while. So my next trip is Panama, or my next scheduled trip is Panama, which is, a 3-hour flight away. So that's not too bad, but thank you. Overall, would you suggest that someone take a trip to Italy or any part of Europe anytime soon? I would like to go to Italy in March, but I will buy MedJet insurance this time. Um, I don't know if I can suggest or recommend traveling. I'm not comfortable saying yes, you should, or no, you shouldn't. But I will say, if you are going to travel, like all the things that I touched on in this video are things to consider. I think it can be done. I think you can travel to Europe and do it in a way that minimizes the danger, because that is one thing we very much were mindful of and worked really hard to do. But one thing I did learn, or was reminded of, is how we just don't know what the next thing in this pandemic is going to look like. I don't know why, because I know better. I just thought, like, after Delta, like, I wasn't worried. I wasn't stressing about Delta because, Moderna was performing well against it. I'm still selectively social about who I fool with and how they live their lives. And, I'm still keeping my COVID circle. So I wasn't, but I really, Omicron caught me off guard. Like that, this thing, it reminds me that this thing is still mutating and it's still trying its damnedest to figure out how to kill us. And I think we would do well not to forget that it is still doing that. I would definitely, that's kind of how I feel about that. Um, this is not a too personal question. I talk about money on this channel, so this is fine. Without being too personal, how far do you budget? How far out do you budget for travel? I do not budget for specific trips necessarily. In my head, because I made a very conscious decision about 6, 7 years ago that I wanted to live a life focused on travel. And so, remember, I was a public school teacher and making peanuts and ice water. That meant I didn't have a lot of money. So I basically prioritized travel. It is a major like budget item for me. So there's always money that's going for travel, but I don't say specifically like this money is for the trip to Italy. I don't think about it in those terms because that's too detail oriented for me. But there's always money going to, I guess you could call it the travel fund, so that when a flight deal pops up, or when some, because I am famously the friend that, like, you want to travel, call Adelia. She'll go. Nobody else might want to go. I would, when I worked a regular job, I would call off work to go. Almost 10 years ago, the friend I went to Italy with was going to Costa Rica for a birthday, and kind of at the last minute was like, "Hey, this is what I'm doing." I told those people at work, I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna have to take off a week to go to Costa Rica because my friend needs me, and I'm out." So I want to all, what is it they say? Stay ready so you don't have to get ready. I want to always be able to do that. So I'm always putting money toward travel, but I don't necessarily earmark it for specific trips. I hope that makes sense. Um, so yeah, so yeah. All right, y'all. We've been up here for an hour and 20 minutes. I am still tired. Like I told y'all, when we were done here, I'm going to roll over and go to sleep. And that is the plan. Thank you for joining me on this Friday night. Stay safe, stay Omarion free. And I will see y'all again. We are going to go back to our regular Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. If you have some other question about travel in Italy that I did not touch on, please leave that in the comments, and I will get you an answer. If you are interested in either making a move abroad or doing travel planning and you need some help, y'all know I do one-on-one calls. There is a link in the description if you want to book a one-on-one call with me. But yeah, y'all take care. Have a good weekend. All that good stuff. Bye, y'all.